networking, vet-friendly organizations, interviewing skills, and resume preparation. All right, first up, what you should be thinking of or what you've already thought of are what are the next steps for you? If you're still currently active duty, are you going to stay in the government job, right? A lot of people transition over into a GS position. These are some questions that you should be thinking about, asking yourself, and really weighing the pros and cons of these questions. So I think first and foremost, you're going to need to answer these five, you need to answer the question to yourself somewhere within these five fields. Are you going to leave the government altogether and go into the civilian sector? Are you going to stay in the same job field which you're currently in, regardless if it's government or civilian? Or are you going to try something completely new, outside the box, maybe go back to school or transition your skills over into a completely new field? Also, you're going to need to look at, once you make that decision, what credentials do you currently have? Does the position require a degree or a certain level of experience? These are things that are critical to where if you haven't retired or even if you're recently retired, you're going to really need to hone in on these categories to make sure that you're on the same page and you're tracking in the right direction.
Jamaal, and I apologize for interrupting you. I just want to make sure that everybody is getting the full value of your presentation. If you don't mind, can you do your presentation at F5 so that we can see the whole screen?
You said F5?
Correct. It should just pop up.
Pressing F5 right now.
Yeah. Okay, so let's try the slideshow on the top bar. On your actual presentation, it says slideshow after animations.
Can you see my screen?
We can see your screen. We just don't see the full presentation. It's just the first page.
Huh. Yeah. So you don't see anything changing?
No, we don't.
Huh. It's actually changing on my screen.
Okay, let's try something. If you go down to your bottom when it says share, let's make sure that you're sharing your entire screen.
Okay.
That might be the issue. It might have popped up separately. There we go. Perfect. Thank you so much.
All right. So did you just see, did you see the learning objectives, Adrian?
No, we didn't. If you don't mind, you can certainly backtrack. Again, everybody, I apologize. I just want to make sure everybody can track exactly what you're saying.
All good. Thanks, Adrian. I really appreciate that. Okay, so you heard me read the learning objectives verbatim. I'll go over those again, and we're going to cover some other things in regards to the learning objectives. So, just bear with me. So we're going to discover how others have leveraged their resources for post-retirement or transition. I'll give you some personal stories of mine of how it's helped me. And please, start working on those questions because I really want to make sure I get out as much information as I can during this webinar. Also, we're going to review techniques and resources needed such as networking, vet-friendly organizations, interviewing skills, and resume preparation. All right, next steps. You kind of heard me talk about these, so I'll give you a second to look at it. And I'm also going to be coming back to these throughout the presentation in some way, shape, or form. All right. Wave tops is next steps, thinking about, are you going to stay in the government? Are you going to transition over into the civilian sector? Are you going to stay within your same job field? So, for example, if you're an aircraft mechanic in the military, are you going to stay in that field regardless whether it's in the government or in the civilian sector? Are you going to go into a completely different field? So if you're an aircraft mechanic now in the military, are you going to go into logistics or supply chain management in the civilian sector or government sector? You just want to try something new. And also really leveraging what credentials you currently have along with any degrees that you may have and just overall experience during your time. Because I imagine the group that I'm talking to, you've done military service for 20 years plus, right? That's a lot of experience that we really want you to leverage once you get out into the civilian sector. So first off, let's talk about some advantages, right? A lot of advantages being in the military. First off, there's positive public support of the armed services, right? When we first came in, and I'm just going back 20 years, if you've been in for 30 years, we were coming out of either a post-Vietnam, which wasn't so great as far as the reputation that the military had getting out, transitioning, and then a post-Desert Storm era, which has been like on the uptick since post Desert Storm. So a lot of major corporations and organizations and just the public in general, has a lot of public support for the military and the armed services. So we have that, and you want to leverage that, right? A lot of generations before us, even people that I work with today, they're just recently getting comfortable sharing that they're a veteran, right? Because they're coming out of that post Vietnam era into the civilian sector. But now it's loud and proud on display. So we want to keep that positive public support going for the armed services. Also, another advantage is that we've moved. It's easy for us to pick up and move, pack light, right? You want to keep that going. I'm also going to talk about how that's a double-edged sword as well, because you may just be ready to homestead and you don't want to move anymore. But for the most part, we come packaged, ready and willing, and we're really easy to relocate. We're results oriented, right? So we're about cause and effect coming out of the military. Not a lot of talking, or pontificating about particular subjects, but we want to get results. And in the civilian sector, senior vice presidents and CEOs, they love that results oriented approach. We're also financially affordable, right? Hiring managers are going to know that if you're retiring from the military, you're going to come with insurance for the most part, right? That can cost employers a pretty penny to insure employees, right? We already come with insurance, right? So we're financially affordable. Also, they can't use the fact that you're getting a pension against you, but you can use that to your advantage, especially if you want to leverage how much your pension is along with what's being offered on the salary, right? Just stepping out into the civilian sector, you may need to take like a lower level entry job compared to what you're currently doing in the military, and you want to use that to your advantage because you're only going to have a upward trajectory. That's what I mean by financially affordable, right? But employers can't use the fact that you get a retirement pension to give you a lower salary, right? Your credentials still are going to speak for themselves. Also, employers are going to know that you're physically fit, right? That should be the expectation, and that shouldn't stop once you get out of the military and retire. And why do I say, why is that important? In the current position that I'm in, you would be surprised of how many workplace injuries we have. And a lot of it is just from strains, pull, and it comes from overall not having a physically fit workforce, right? So a lot of strains, sprains, pulls, high use injuries. But when I go and look at the reports of what it comes from, they're really general tasks, right, that people are getting injured from. But we come physically fit, so employers won't have they shouldn't have to worry about those types of injuries from the military population going out into the civilian workforce. So these are some primary advantages that I've seen, and I've experienced, being in the military and transitioning over into the civilian sector. So next, we're going to talk about some disadvantages with transitioning out of the military. First off is that military look and talk, right? We've all seen it. A lot of it is service specific. Marine Corps likes to high and tight, Air Force maybe not so much. But regardless, there still is an overall general look and talk that we have. This is something that we're really going to have to work on, even once you're about a year out, is to start transitioning your language over to a civilian language, not using so many acronyms. When you get out, maybe grow your hair out just a little bit, and also look at the culture that you're going into, or whatever type of position that you take, right? If you're going to stay in the government, do government work, then that still may be advantageous to you. But if you're going into something that's not really service related, you may want to look at, the military look and talk. Now, one thing that my organization that I work for, which is really cool to make veterans, feel accepted and inclusive, is we actually on our badges, we actually wear US, you know, veteran, right? Whatever service you were in. And this, I've seen this be really advantageous because going out into the civilian world, it can be a daunting task. But when you look at a badge and you see, oh, a fellow vet, right? It sparks up a conversation and you can share those stories about, hey, how's your transition been? Whether they retired or if they just did, a couple tours and got out, you still have that service connection, right? But definitely want to be aware of the military look and talk as you go out into the civilian world. Maybe not enough process orientation. And this is something that you're going to have to leverage with the skills that you're coming into the organization with, right? You may just not be up to speed on how they do business, but definitely let them know that you're aware to get up to speed as quick as possible. Also understanding civilian habits. This is one thing that I'm still like getting really used to. The example I give you is meetings, right? The organization that I'm currently with, in the level where I'm working at, have a lot of meetings, right? But in the military, we used to meetings really coming out with an action plan from every meeting. We're giving out assignments, maybe deadlines, due dates, tasking people, really trying to get stuff done, cause and effect. Civilian habits, maybe not so much. Maybe a lot of talking, really thinking through the process where you may have a meeting, another meeting, another meeting, maybe another meeting, just to kind of get through the process and come out with an action plan. So just understanding those civilian habits, understanding, who's who, with the military. It's very easy to look at ranks, see who's who, titles. But in the civilian world, it may not be as clear cut as, who's the decision maker, who's the stakeholder, who's in charge. So these are things that I would recommend you as you're going out into the civilian workforce, you really take a step back and learn the organization, do your research on the organization, because you're not going in with that corporate knowledge that you built up throughout your military career, right? 20 plus years is a long time to really understand a service culture. And for most people getting out now, a joint service culture to where you can just go into any situation and feel extremely comfortable, right? So you're going to want to take some time once you go out into the civilian sector to learn those habits. On the flip side, I told you earlier about the advantages. After 20 years plus, you may not want to move anymore, right? You may have done your homestead tour and you're set in the location where you are. I say this is a disadvantage is because this is going to limit the scope or the range of where you can go and where you can take jobs, right? If you still open yourself up to being easily relocated, right, you have the whole world, right, essentially, the United States and beyond to relocate and go at a job with a choice assignment, choice preference of where you want to go, right? So just kind of keep that in mind with the military advantages and disadvantages. Next up, we're going to get to like my favorite part, and that's networking. Networking equals connections, right? Being in the military for 20 years plus, you have a huge network, right? That started from day one, whether it was OCS or boot camp, or whatever session program or ROTC, right? Back at college, whatever program you came in on, right? You already started your network. I'm still extremely close with people who I joined the military with from day one when I joined in 1998, right? But now you may be going into a whole new field, right? If you're staying in the government, this may not affect you that much. But if you're going into the civilian sector or job field, you're gonna want to build up that network. You're gonna have to, right? So this is extremely important. So first up, you want to clean up that social media presence, right? And this holds true even if you're still active duty. You don't want a social media presence that kind of puts out a bad innuendos about you and your character, right? Extremely important. So if you're on Facebook, really be careful with what you post, what you like, things like that, because you'll be surprised that most corporations, those people that are recruiting and looking for new talent, they're mining the social media platforms, right? They're mining Instagram, they're mining Facebook, they're mining all these platforms to really get a sight picture of who you are and what you represent. So networking, clean up that social media presence. Next up is my favorite, and I know they're made by LinkedIn, but I think it's an amazing platform. Amazing platform. Why do I say that? LinkedIn is the professional gold standard for making connections. And you want to start that as soon as you make that decision that you're going to get out of the military and retire, right? You want to start making those connections with everybody that you meet in a professional field. You can start that off with your colleagues, right? About 90% of people right now are on LinkedIn, professionals are on LinkedIn. So you want to join that network. As you meet people, you exchange business cards, and you want to tell them immediately, hey, I want to connect with you through LinkedIn, right? Extremely important. You can see their backgrounds. You can also look at positions that are extremely important in what you want to go into. Also, you want to look at professional organizations. Um, for me, I'm a healthcare administrator, so I'm a part of the American College of Healthcare Executives, right? That's a huge professional organization for healthcare executives, right, in the civilian sector. That's going to be important for you to look at what professional organizations you can use to grow your network. And many of these organizations have veteran friendly entrance fees and annual dues. Next up is recruiting agencies. Bradley Morris, Orion, Lucas Group are the major players when it comes to recruiting veterans. The major difference, what I've seen in these groups, and there are many more out there, but I'm just going to talk about these three, is that with Bradley Morris, you're going to be talking to a vet, right? The person who you're conversating with, and the person that reaches out to you, if you reach out to Bradley Morris, that person is going to be a veteran. Orion does about the same thing, but it's not guaranteed that you're going to be talking to a veteran, and also with Lucas Group. Now, I tell you my story. Bradley Morris actually reached out to me. So once I made the decision that I was going to retire and enter the civilian sector, we'll go back to bullet number 2. My LinkedIn profile was up to date. I turned on that I was open and available to opportunities. Recruiting agency reached directly out to me. That was Bradley Morris. It was a vet who had the same background as me, was a prior medic, corpsman, told me about this new position with Kaiser Permanente. And I was like, whoa, that sounds pretty interesting. I'm very interested, right? So I was recruited by Bradley Morris to join the current organization that I'm with. And that was primarily through LinkedIn. I don't know how they would have reached out to me if I didn't have a LinkedIn account. All right, so these are some big things with networking. I know it's not on here, but also a lot of areas, where you are or where you've been, have these huge job networking events. You want to go to those. You want to go to those. You want to take your card, right, and connect with people and build that network, build that social network. All right, so I definitely, this is really important. So I'm definitely looking forward to answering some questions about the networking equals connections. All right, just honing in on LinkedIn just a little bit. Here are some tips. I talked about this earlier. It's the premier professional social media platform, right? You want to start making those meaningful connections. You have direct recruiter interaction through LinkedIn. So here's a little tip. I know in the military we used to the name recruiter, but now there's a new name that's out there, like a hot name for recruiters, and it's called a talent acquisition manager or a talent acquisition representative. But talent acquisition is the buzzword. So with LinkedIn, you can actually go on, find corporations that you're interested in, and you can connect directly with the talent acquisition managers. When you do that, you can have them look at your resume. You can say, hey, what do you think about my resume? Do you have any positions that, you know, I can apply for, or I may be a good candidate for? They'll be more than happy to review your resume and give you some feedback. You want to start that, you know, at the latest a year out from your retirement, right? So you can start building those connections and really getting feedback on where your strengths and your weaknesses are for certain positions in the civilian sector. All right. Also, you want to enhance your profile. So on LinkedIn, you can type up an executive summary. You can give detailed employment, education recommendations, and endorsements. Extremely important as well, right? So on LinkedIn, any of your old former bosses, COs, executive officers, they can go right in, write you a recommendation out. And with that, recruiters will see who's recommending you. On LinkedIn, you can give endorsements, right? Endorsements, skill sets that you're going to type in of what you have. So as you meet people and people that you already know, you want to go in and give them endorsements on their skills. And in turn, they'll give you endorsements on your skills. Talent acquisition managers see this, right? And it's just networking and it's connections coming full circle. Oh, let me just go back. Also, with LinkedIn, one thing to know is that as a veteran, you're going to get 1 year of premium access to LinkedIn. Do take advantage of this. I turned it on at about a 1 year mark from getting out because you get a year for free. And I turned it on at about a year out. And some of the things of why this is important and the advantage that it gives you is that you can see salary comps to positions that you're looking at. You can have direct messaging to people through LinkedIn. It's also going to show you who's looking at your profile and give you schematics on who's looking at your profile, which is, I think that's really important because you can see how marketable you are just from recruiters looking at your profile. Because believe it or not, with the world that we're in today, everything is connected, and your social media presence and the skills that you have, recruiters are looking for that. And they actually have algorithms that point out keywords with within what you post on LinkedIn and how you write out your LinkedIn profile, where they'll find you directly. The way I set up my LinkedIn profile was just like my resume. My bullets were pretty concise, cause and effect type bullets. And that's how I set up my LinkedIn profile. Next up, as far as resources, the Veterans Benefits Administration, really good resource, what I've used a lot. That's the website at the top. Do use that. It's going to go over some healthcare resources, disability, education and training, records management, family member benefits, careers and employment, and life insurance. So do use this. It's free. All the resources, what I'm going over today, are all the free resources. None of this is going to cost you a thing, right? Just like SAVI and what we bring to the table, not for profit, these resources are all. So I recommend you use this. Some additional resources. American Corporate Partners, really, really good resource. I'm actually a mentor on American Corporate Partners myself. What American Corporate Partners does, and again, this is a not-for-profit. What they do is you reach out to American Corporate Partners as a veteran, retiree, or even as a vet, and you look for a mentor within a job field that you're interested in. So before I got out, I wanted to do the healthcare executive field. So Corporate Partners actually found me a mentor, healthcare executive that mentored me for the past year and a half, and it was an amazing experience. Just looking at my resume, my background, using transitional language from military to civilian talk, it was great. And I graduated from that program as a protege, and now I'm a mentor giving back to people wanting to get out and join the healthcare executive field as well. So American Corporate Partners is great for that. Veterati is similar to American Corporate Partners, but it's just more digital. I have a lot of friends that have used these resources as well, and it's highly regarded. Right, so Veterati and American Corporate Partners, I will give them the gold standard, a mentor and taking care of a protege. Boost the business. If you're interested in getting out and starting your own business, you can actually get free you know, and free resources through the Boost to Business, and you can get that right on base if you're about to retire. They have classes all the time on regional basis where community business come site free knowledge on how to start your own business. Right, amazing resource, and it's all free. DoD Skill Bridge programs. This is a DoD instruction, and what this is basically where you're allowed to, as you're transitioning out, you're allowed to use. I know in the in the Navy we called it uh, TDY, temporary duty, right? Where you're still on active duty, but you're away on a different assignment, and you actually go and do similar to a fellowship or internship with a large corporation. So that's the policy right there. The next bullet, hiring for heroes, actually falls under the DoD Skill Bridge program. So if you want to look into hiring for heroes, it's that fellowship, right? Really big in major regional areas, but they're also, if it's not hiring for heroes, a lot of corporations actually fall under the DoD Skill Bridge program. So I recommend you use that DoD instruction, and you can actually find large organizations and ask them, will they be interested in joining the DoD Skill Bridge program? But hiring for heroes, they've done a really good job in areas fellowship program with people going to Amazon, Boeing, CarMax, Lockheed Martin, and Verizon, Prudential, Wells Fargo. And once you do that fellowship, talked about earlier about that networking, makes it really easy for a company to hire you once you've been working for them basically for free, proving who you are, still on active duty, but temporary additional duty to their organization, building those connections, building those networks, they offer you a job, right? Amazing success, and the numbers speak for themselves through the Hiring Our Heroes Corporate Fellowship Program. So I definitely would recommend you look into that as well. Service to School is another organization where you can go right into college. Heard really good reviews about that. Accenture has a veteran technology training program where you can apply to that, and they'll actually train you for a job. Right? These are some additional resources, and there are a whole host of more. So hopefully we can get on some more of these webinars and just share our experiences, and we can put out some more resources to you. But these are some that I've experienced personally, and I can vouch for these that they are great, whether through me personally using these resources or somebody that I'm very close with using these resources to tremendous success. So now I turn it back over to Adrian. If there are any questions out there, I'm happy right now to stay on the line and answer all the questions I possibly can. So I turn it back over to Adrian.
Perfect. Thank you. That was some really amazing information. And if you don't mind, can we just get you to stop sharing your screen, Jamaal?
I can.
Perfect. Thank you so much. There we go. All right. So I did get some great questions in. First and foremost, did you take any formal classes on LinkedIn?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
So the one class there was it was a transitioning class. Um, it was like a military transition and setting up your LinkedIn profile, was basically what it was. I did that through LinkedIn, and it was amazing just to help me set up my profile, organize it with the titles, the speech, the chronological order. It was really great, and that was a training right through the LinkedIn website.
Is that the LinkedIn Learning?
It is LinkedIn Learning. Yes.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. And the next question, did anybody write your LinkedIn, like I guess your profile is what they mean?
No. So there are a lot of people out there through LinkedIn that will reach out to you and they'll write it for you. And I've heard good reviews about that. But I think just coming from my field, I was an administrator, so I had some skills doing professional writing and things like that. But I would still recommend people just take a shot and write in their own LinkedIn profile. From talking to a lot of hiring managers and CEOs and senior vice presidents, they can kind of tell when somebody else wrote it for you and you didn't write it for yourself. So I would say take a shot at personalizing your LinkedIn profile just to make sure you own it and not somebody who's getting paid and they're going to give you maybe like a carbon copy. I can't really speak for how much energy they're going to put into it, but it can definitely show a lot when you write it yourself.
Perfect. And we had one of our webinar participants actually bring up that Michael Quinn wrote the ultimate LinkedIn cheat sheet. I have not heard of that, so I am definitely going to look that up. Yes. I'm sure it's of great value. Another question that we got, besides connecting with recruiters, how did you know who to speak to?
Really good question. So what you can do is through LinkedIn, if we're talking about recruiters, you can go and look up a corporation. For example, let's say Amazon, right? Amazon has a ton of recruiters. You can go and find a military recruiter, right? And these recruiters specialize in finding military talent. You can reach directly out to these recruiters through LinkedIn via message, and they'll get back to you. So I found that very resourceful, just going directly to the organization. Another story I had was I reached out, I was looking at a job, I was looking at Airbnb. Actually, I reached out directly to an executive through Airbnb simply because their profile said, let's connect. So I started my conversation off with, hey, because you said, let's connect. And she actually got back to me, connected me with the recruiter at Airbnb, and that led to an interview.
Wow, that's amazing. And did somebody tell you to start your transition so early, or were you just that well prepared?
No, I had mentors, and actually, SAVI, Adrian, you were one of the first to reach out to me once I turned on my LinkedIn that I was available. And I think that's another important thing is once you put on that you're available through LinkedIn, it's going to open you up to resources. And that's how I was connected with SAVI through LinkedIn once I said that I was available.
Perfect. And just a caveat to that, adding that title of transitioning veteran, transitioning military, anything that's going to give, employers, anybody that's looking to connect with veterans, an indication that you are getting ready to get out is definitely a really good add-on to include in your profile. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I would also add to that with your business cards, title transitioning. So people kind of know that you're going to be available soon for a position as you're networking and meeting people. That's a great point, Adrian. Thank you.
Of course. Let's see, and we got two more questions. How long did it take you to get comfortable in the civilian sector?
Still working on it. I haven't. It hasn't even been a year yet. But still working on it. It takes some time. 20 years plus is a long time to be within an organization and then step out and start with something new. A lot of the stuff that we've done and how we kind of get things done, it translates, but it's still a lot of learning. So a lot of learning process. Some days, I go to work and I'm just like super pumped and I'm like, did I approach that the right way? Was that productive? Was that counterproductive? So I'm still working on it, but I tell you, I'm way more comfortable now than I was 11 months ago with the transition. So work in progress.
Okay. And our last question, it says, wow, I have never heard of any of these resources. Where did you get them from?
Well, you brung one up. Michael Quinn, his cheat sheet was really good. I found that through LinkedIn and just using the resource center on base. The support centers are amazing. They help you draft your resume. They provide a lot of different resources and read materials for you to write your resume and really just building that network of connections that you can reach out to.
Right. And I'm going to add a caveat to that is that that's actually what we specialize in, is making sure that we are customizing resources for transitioning veterans. There's a lot of information to shift through. And this is one of the key points that we always bring up, that as veterans, access is never the problem. It's relevancy. Making these things relevant to your specific objectives and your needs is really where we specialize outside of educating you on your basic federal entitlements. So I encourage you, again, Jamaal has brought up some really incredible resources. All of these organizations are organizations that we've engaged with at some point, and we definitely encourage you guys, please do not pay for anything until you have explored what nonprofits offer. Government agencies, state agencies, there's a lot of organizations that offer these things at 100% no cost. And as a transitioning veteran, you should not have to pay to transition out. So please, I encourage you, reach out, ask questions, whether it's your colleagues, maybe it's your transition units, whoever it is, contact us. I definitely encourage that. And we will absolutely make sure that you get directed to the right place. Now, I actually have a question for you, Jamaal, if you don't mind.
I'm ready.
What was the most difficult part of your transition? Maybe unexpected or just challenging?
The most difficult part of the transition. Um, that's a good one. I think just really preparing the family. It's a huge thing. Just really, I want to say getting off the reservation, but a base is a reservation. It's reserved for military personnel. It's like private property, and you would be surprised of how safe that space is. Just to wear the uniform, go on base. You have access to, even though a lot of people don't even go to the commissary anymore, but just having that comfort level, the gym, the base, the military treatment facility, everything right there. That was a little difficult getting out, and just kind of really having to figure it out on your own, because there may not be a military base around for you to have access to those resources. So I think that was probably the most difficult, and also for my wife, as well. She always felt extremely safe and comfortable because we knew we had the military family to fall back on. But once you transition out, it's a different type of comfort level, engaging with civilians as it is with engaging with military veterans. So that was probably the most difficult thing for us. And that's something that we worked through and we're comfortable now. But initially, that was pretty difficult.
Yeah, I agree. We sometimes don't remember how much this impacts the individuals that are supporting us, whether that's family, friends, caregivers. It can be anybody that's in your circle. Similar to how we get comfortable in our military life, so do they. And it does come with a certain structure and dependability in terms of, what's going to be kind of next or what your schedule is going to look like. So having that unknown definitely becomes a little bit unsettling for a lot of people. And so that's certainly a big consideration.
Absolutely.
Well, that has been some really amazing information. And before I close it out, I just want to make sure that there's no additional questions from anybody that's either on our live or in our webinar. I just want to check. No, it looks like we're good. So if anybody does have any questions, if you're watching this on replay, please feel free to email us directly, info, I-N-F-O, at SAVI, that's S-A-V-I, vets, vets.org. And we will absolutely make sure that we get back to you with all of those answers. Jamaal, is there anything that you would like to close out with? Oh, your contact information. Where can people find you if they want to get a hold of you?
Hey, I was pushing it, so I'll keep pushing it. You can connect with me through LinkedIn.
Okay.
My name is on the invite for everybody. So please reach out. You can message me any questions you may have. I'll make time. I'll be available to you all. I'm very transparent. If there was something that I didn't touch on today and you want to ask, please reach out, connect, and let's start building those connections, taking care of each other.
Love it. Thank you so much, Jamaal. You've been incredible. This has been a really educational webinar, and we thank you for all of your time. Everybody, thank you for joining. And again, please do not forget to sign up for upcoming webinars. That is www.savivets.org/veterans, plural. So we look forward to seeing you on our next webinar. Thanks so much for joining us.